Welcome back, guys. As you all know, my name is Luke Price. My guest today is my Uncle Glenn. He served in the Army for 4 years, and thank you so much for doing this, Uncle Glenn. Now, my
Absolutely.
fir- now my first question is, well, why did you want to join the Army?
Now, there are a couple reasons why. Growing up in the 80s, one of the big deals for me was G.I. Joe, and they made the military look really cool. So that was one reason. Another reason was that I wanted to somehow get into the military and do my service. I kind of felt like that would be a good thing to do anyway for the country. And I was looking into maybe cadet training with one of the academies, or just going in and getting money for college later. And that was a big deal for me, in the sense that, did I want to do straight to college and do the cadet training, or did I want to take some time off with regular military and then go to college after that? And that's what I did. That final answer kind of, for me, kind of tails into that second answer, in that, well, we didn't have hardly any money at the time, and I wasn't getting any scholarships for academics or anything like that. I mean, I made good grades. It just wasn't good enough for decent enough of scholarships. So, that's why I went into the military.
Okay. What was your job in the Army?
I was an intel analyst. I used to tell my mom that, well, I can't tell you what I did, Mom, because I'd have to kill you if I told you, kind of thing. And, both your dad and I used to tell our parents that. And that, although it is accurate that most of our job was confidential and protected by the secrecy laws of the United States of America, basically, I analyzed the communications that we intercepted from the enemy. And come to find out, I didn't know this until I started asking your dad this, but he and I did roughly the same job, only in different branches of service. I did mine in the Army, and he did his in the Navy. But it was very similar training that we had, and very similar work that we did. And I thought that was pretty funny that we ended up doing something pretty similar, even though, quite honestly, we're different in many ways.
How convenient.
Yeah, that's right. How convenient.
Uh, so uh, you, so what was the typical day like for you, training wise, or when you had your job?
Well, there's all kinds of different typical days. Like, for instance, basic training, all you're doing is whatever the drill sergeant tells you, right? Usually that involves some kind of physical pain throughout the day. And then, of course, learning how to do literally basic military maneuvers and actions. I then went to my AIT, which is Advanced Individual Training, my schooling for my job. And that took about 7 or 8 months to get done. And that day was different. I mean, I'd start off every day with PT, and then we'd go to school, and then I'd probably study some or do some more PT on my own, just because there wasn't much to do in this little hole in the wall place we were at in the middle of West Texas. And, we do that over and over and over. PT, school, and study. That's really most of what I did there. And then my main duty station, it was PT in the morning, about 6:30 in the morning. We'd do PT for about an hour, hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours, and then we would go about our day. So I'd come back from PT, take a shower, get ready for the day, and then we'd go off and do different things. Sometimes, I did my kind of training in the field. Doug did his on a naval vessel. I did, some people who did my job in the Army, they did it in an office somewhere. Well, I was part of a team that would basically go out on a long range reconnaissance mission with a bunch of radios in our backpacks. We'd have about 3 or 4 teams of about 4 or 5 individuals, and we would listen to the radio communications of the enemy, and some people would translate them, and then some of us would analyze all the communications. We'd be able to figure out where people were, what they were doing. Some cases we knew what some of the colonels were having for dinner that night. Some of our enemies did not have very good radio communication skills, and they didn't practice good radio security. So we were able to identify quite a few people that way. So.
What would you normally do during PT?
Well, the focus for PT obviously was, mission quality. Are you mission ready? So we would focus on all kinds of different things. We typically would run at least 3 times a week. If we were trying to really focus on the run, we'd run five times a week. And then we'd also focus on strength. A lot of times when we were in our regular duty station, I would do PT twice a day. So PT, and I'm kind of answering the prior question right now too. We do PT, get ready for work, do our work, do some more PT in the afternoon, and then after that we were released to do whatever we wanted to do. Kind of like a regular job. If you exercise in the morning, you do that, get ready for your work, go to work, and then you leave work and then do whatever you want to do the rest of the day. So we would do PT twice a day. Typically, the morning time frame was cardio in nature, and the afternoon was strength training. So that's what we would focus on.
What would you normally do for strength training?
Strength training, we were in the weight room a lot. We did a lot of weight room stuff, but we were doing CrossFit stuff before CrossFit was actually called CrossFit. So what we did was we did things, all kinds of different push-ups and pull-ups and core work and that sort of thing. And we would always try to better the other person. So we would always, sometimes we'd make a game of it where, how long could we hold a push-up position? Or how slowly could we come down and do a push-up and then still slowly go back up and do a push-up? And then how many of those slow push-ups could we do? But in the weight room for strength training, we followed a pretty good regimen. We would do, chest one day, legs the next, back one day, legs the next, arms and that sort of thing, and then do a couple of weeks of that, and then a couple weeks later we'd switch it up. We would do chest and legs, back and arms, and stuff like that. So and I wasn't working out to necessarily get big, but I was working out necessarily to have stamina with my weights. So instead of doing trying to max out, I would be pushing 10, 12, 15 reps per set on my strength training.
So what you'd say you normally do push-ups and pull-ups. How often would you normally do those? Like every day for a certain amount of time, or?
No, that was for our physical fitness test, we only had to do push-ups, sit-ups, and a run. So how many push-ups can you do in 2 minutes? How many sit-ups can you do in 2 minutes? And then how fast can you run 2 miles? So as it related to the push-up side of things, when we did do push-ups, we tried to make it to where we could have enough strength and stamina to just continually do push-ups and push-ups and push-ups and push-ups as much as possible. So sometimes that might include doing, I forget what it's called, but some kind of pyramid. It's a pyramid of push-ups. So we'd start off with 5. No, pyramid. You'd start off with 5 push-ups, then go to 10, then go to 15, then go to 20, then do 20 again, then 15, then 10, then 5, and those kinds of different sets. And the 5 push-ups would be your diamond push-ups. The 10 push-ups would be regular push-ups, just at this level where your shoulders are directly over your hands. And then the 15 push-ups would be just a little bit wider, and then the 20 push-ups would be, wide arm push-ups. And then we do wide arm again, regular, underneath our shoulders, and then diamonds. So, I mean, yeah, we would do stuff like that for push-ups all the time. We tried to see how big we could make that pyramid. So one time we started off with, 10 push-ups, and then we would do 20, 30, and 40, 40, 30, 20, 10 again. So, I mean, we were able to do stuff like that too. And pull-ups were the same. We wouldn't do as many pull-ups as we would push-ups, but we do similar things like that too, pyramids, and sometimes we'd add a little weight. Sometimes when doing pull-ups, we would interchange between this kind of grip or this kind of grip. But when we're doing pull-ups, we'd have somebody hit us in the gut while we're doing a pull-up. Pull up, come down. Someone punch you after you come down. Then you do another pull-up, and they punch you again. It just kind of helped toughen you up a little bit.
Okay, so would you add weight to the push-ups or the pull-ups or both? And how much would you add?
No, back in the day, there weren't weight vests or anything like that. They did have chains, and you could add weight to to do pull-ups, but we never did that. We did do resistance training though, where somebody might hold on to your hips or hold on to your feet as you're doing a pull-up to add a little bit more resistance, but not a lot.
Okay, so tell me about a time you felt successful in the Army.
Well, quite a few times. Anytime I walked away from a jump, I used to jump out of airplanes. Anytime I walked away from a jump, that I felt successful there.
So I'm guessing you don't want to go skydiving again.
Well, I got paid extra to jump out of an airplane, and I just have a hard time paying like $300, $400 to jump out of an airplane for something that I got paid to do. So, and besides, skydiving is considerably easier than what we did because you get a nice big parachute when you're skydiving. They give you a good chute when you're parachuting in the military. But the problem is that with those regular round chutes, when you're jumping out of an airplane, you potentially could be getting shot at. So they don't want you hanging up in the air too long. So yeah, although you're still going to live when you land, they don't want you staying up there too long, so you can fall a little faster. So yeah, that's. But anyway, what was the question on that again? I got sidetracked with the parachuting. Successful. Yeah. So yeah, anytime I walked away from parachuting, I felt pretty successful. But getting perfect scores on my PT test, passing schools. I went to professional leadership development course. And everyone who wants to be a sergeant has to go to one of those. I passed that with flying colors. I was not number one in my class, but I was actually graded as the highest teacher in my class, and that I thought that was pretty cool. So I felt pretty successful there. There's some other things I used to do. I did not go to scuba school, but I did go to pre-scuba school, and I did pretty well in that, and realized that there are some amazingly fit individuals out there that you just don't ever hear about because they're not the type of individuals that are going to be competing for championships. They're the type of individuals who are actually just going to be saving Americans' lives and that sort of thing. And no one else knows about it because they're in the military. But I found some amazing people, and I felt successful, I guess is a good word for it. I guess blessed would be another term, to be able to rub shoulders with some of these guys because they're truly amazing people.
So what was the normal sergeant class that you were talking about? What was that like?
Okay, so professional leadership development course. What they do there is that for those people who are aspiring leaders in the military, they want to make sure that they train you well in leadership. And what I what I what I found to be really amazing and refreshing was that they spent a lot of time on integrity. And they said it this way: if you can't be trusted, what makes you think you can be a good leader? And I wholeheartedly agree with that statement. So a typical day in leadership school is very similar to most any other school or any other place. You wake up, you do PT. You go throughout the day, you do your courses, you do your training, you learn how to teach, you learn how to lead, you learn how to do some things, and then you go to dinner, and then you're given the rest of the evening, to have a little bit of free time. But in leadership development course, you don't always have the free time because they also want you to do some more training, more studying, so you can be a good leader in the military. So 3 weeks was the length of the PLDC course. And so you were essentially there just to train and learn how to be a good leader. So you wake up, PT, go to school, study some more, and practice your leadership skills.
So did those leadership skills that you learned in that class help you as a father?
Well, to be fair, to be fair to PLDC, I think I forgot half of it before I became a father. But I would have to say yes, and here's the reason why. Besides going to college and getting a Bible degree in pastoral studies, what I found was that PLDC was a pretty decent foundation for which I began my ability to be a leader, and in that case, also to some degree, my ability to be a father. So yes, it was a good start for it.
Okay, so to switch topics, so what was the time when you felt unsuccessful in the army?
Oh, when I got kicked out of Ranger School.
Okay, what was that? What's the ranger? What's that job? What was that job?
Rangers, Ranger, the Ranger Regiment is a part of the Special Operations Forces of the Army. Different branches have their own special ops. The Army has Green Berets and the Rangers. Navy has its SEALs. Air Force has its own deal, and the Marines have their own specialized division as well. And so I was nominated to be able to go into Ranger School, and so they are your elite kind of infantry force. They don't joke around, they don't mess around, and they really do get the job done. So Rangers are a special operations force for infantrymen.
Okay. Okay, so why'd you get kicked out?
Here's a lesson for you, Luke. Don't tell your instructor that he is an idiot. All right.
I won't tell him.
Learn how to keep your mouth shut when it's important.
I wish I could I should try to apply that when Mimo's around.
That's probably a fair statement right there, Luke. But yeah, in all seriousness, I had been fed up with my Ranger instructors. To some degree, I felt intellectually superior, and that is my fault. I had a pride issue. I also had an anger issue because, in my estimation, they had in an unequal way assessed my abilities, I felt, and so I let them know it. I said, "You're an idiot," and that was my fast track ticket to go back home. And
Okay.
I had to explain that to my colonel when I got back, and let me tell you, that was a very unfortunate and unpleasant experience. Not some colonel who not only had a Ranger tab, but he also had a Special Forces tab. So he was Special Forces Green Beret qualified. So I had to answer to him on why in the world I felt that the Ranger instructor was an idiot. And boy, that was the biggest butt chewing I had ever gotten, and I probably will ever get. But to be fair to my colonel, because he was a good man, he really was. In the end, afterwards, he asked me specifically what happened. I told him exactly what happened, and he looked at me. He goes, Price, that guy probably was an idiot, but that doesn't excuse the fact that you failed. I said, I know, sir. So they were going to send me back, but there's a few things that they were going to do for me besides send me back. But I had decided that after 4 years was up, that I was done with the military. So I went to college after that.
Why were you done with the military after those 4 years?
Well, I really felt God leading me to go to college. I really believe that God was leading me to learn more about Him, learn more about the Bible, and be able to be a blessing for the church. And so that's what I did. It was a very hard decision for me because they were going to promote me to E5, give me another signing bonus, and they were going to send me to Defense Language Institute over there in Monterey, California. I was going to be over there for about a year learning Arabic. Back in '95, which is when I would have re-enlisted, Arabic was a big necessity. And obviously, if I'd have stayed in the military through, 5 more years to 2000, and then 9/11 happened in 2001, I would have been used extensively for my Arabic skills if I'd have stayed in. So it's probably a good thing I didn't.
Well, what advice would you give to somebody who wanted to join the military?
Well, I'd ask them why, first of all. Like for me, I was a soccer player. I was a swimmer. I was a track athlete. I had varsity letters in those things in high school. And I had good grades, and I felt like I could actually utilize the military training for college education and do a good job for the country. So if I had some kid mentioning those kinds of things to me, that would be something I would look for as to why they're going into the military. Make sure they're doing it for the right reasons. Some kids get in there and they're not doing it for the right reasons. Maybe they're doing it to get away from their family. Maybe they're doing it to get away from the police. Some reason like that. Make sure they're doing it for the right reasons. But I'd also let them know that you don't have to accept the first job that the recruiters send over to you. And I'd also let them know to be very careful, because not all recruiters are looking out for your best interest. Many of them are, but not all of them. So you need to be pretty wise in how that is going to look. And in that end, not many teenagers pick up on all the social cues that would tell them that a recruiter may or may not be completely honest with them. So I would say involve your parents, or at least a trusted adult in this kind of decision making, because it is a huge decision to make. So those are some of the big advices I would give to people looking into the military. Do it for the right reason. Just remember the recruiter's not always looking out for your best interest. And then involve your parents or a trusted adult.
So did you have to give that advice to Gabe? Or
Well, yeah, I'm glad you asked that. And just so people know who that is, Gabe is my 19-year-old son now. And he had considered going into the military, and he's one of the guys, he's the type of guy that actually does his homework. So he was looking into the different branches. He looked into them all, and he had initially come down to the Army and to the Marines, but it was something about the Marines and the Marine recruiters that that really drew him towards the Marines. And yes, those are the same pieces of advice that I did give Gabe. Why are you doing this? Why are you looking into the military? Okay. He wants to help pay for college. That's a good reason. He also said he wanted some of the challenges that the Marines could give, and he felt that the Marines would be the hardest challenge. That's another good reason. I warned him about recruiters, but I'll give it to these Marine recruiters here in Columbia, Missouri. They're pretty forthright. I was very impressed with their level of integrity, with how upfront they were, and with the way that they dealt with Gabe. Because Gabe was mature about it, and because he took care of business, they treated him very well. So I was very impressed with that. And then also, obviously, he did involve me and Mom in those sorts of things. And so, yeah, I did give that advice to Gabe. He followed that advice, and he's been pretty successful so far in the Marines.
It served him well.
So far, yep, absolutely.
Did you get to fire any weapons?
All the time.
What was your favorite?
I have to admit, I like the accuracy of an M16. They're pretty neat weapons. I just love the staying power and the amount of rounds I can throw down range with an M60 machine gun. Now, I know they don't use those weapons anymore, but man, there was just something about a nice, big, heavy 25-pound weapon. Actually, I think it was 26. That when you put that thing on the ground and got that thing loaded, and with all of the rounds of ammunition that could just be forced through the M60 machine gun, it was a big, powerful weapon, and I really liked that one. Now, I also like the grenade launchers, because you could just fire a grenade off, and a few seconds later it would land somewhere and make a nice big explosion. Those were fun. Claymore mines were pretty impressive to set off, especially if you were in a if you needed to clear some brush, or really do some damage to some vehicles and stuff like that. Claymore mines were pretty impressive. But you're going to say what was my favorite. It's really hard. The pistols were great, but I'd still probably have to say my M16 rifle.
But so the M16 because of the accuracy and.
Yeah, and its reliability. It was just an amazing weapon. You could darn near beat the snot out of that thing, and it would still keep ticking.
So earlier you said oh, what was I thinking? I lost my train of thought. As Dad would say, happens to the best of us.
Happens to the best of us. That's right.
So the M6 actually
out of helicopters or rappelling out of helicopters. You can let me know.
That's what I was thinking of. Did you ever get scared before jumping out of a plane or a helicopter?
Every time. See, I have a natural fear of heights anyway. And so I figured airborne, not only would I get paid for it, but I'd get over my fear of heights. No, it really only accentuated my fear. But I did understand, though, that my fear wasn't so much of the heights. It was of the landing. And if you landed wrong, you could really do some damage. And so one time I was in an old T-10 Charlie parachute. Now, I know you don't know what that is. Maybe you can look it up.
Yeah, I'll look it up later.
But they didn't have toggles. I didn't have toggles to pull right or left. You actually had to pull the risers. And those risers are the big, thick pieces of webbing that attach to each of the strands of the actual parachute coming down. So if you're going to slow yourself down, if you're going forward, you reach back to the rear risers and pull the rear risers down at the very last second to slow you down. And then it'll slow you down a little bit, and then you can do your parachute landing fall, or PLF. And this isn't airborne school when I did this. This is about my third or fourth jump. And instead of pulling my rear risers, because I was going forward, I pulled my front risers. And what that did is that the wind caught my front risers and made me go faster. And it turned me into a stinking lawn dart. And oh my goodness, that just hurt so bad. When I landed, I thought for sure I broke something, but no, I didn't. It just hurt so bad.
That's a miracle right there.
It was amazing. We had a lot of guys that did that, and 99% of us walked away just fine. We had a couple sprained ankles, but no big deal. But the scariest time for me was when we were fast roping out of a helicopter. A fast rope is nothing more than a big old thick, a rope about this thick. So that's about 4 or 5 inches across, I guess, in diameter. That hangs from an arm of the Black Hawk helicopter. You're fully loaded, so you got your rucksack on your back, you got your weapon on your side, and you got gloves on your hands ready to go. And you just kind of grab the rope and go on down. Well, I know you can't tell this on the video, but you've seen me in person. I'm not a very tall guy. I'm only 5'8", and my arms are pretty short. They only reach about 5'8", 5'9". So when I'm sitting here trying to reach for the rope off of the Black Hawk helicopter, my arms wouldn't reach. So I had to hop off, essentially, the helicopter and hope to God that I grabbed onto the rope on my way down. Otherwise, I would have fallen about 60 or 70 feet as we're trying to fast rope down. So, and that was the scariest I'd ever been. I made sure my legs were on the skid of the helicopter, and I just kind of leaned forward and let go of the helicopter, and I did grab onto the rope, no problem. But I mean, that
Talk
was
about
scary.
a leap of faith.
Yeah, that was scary for me. Some people, no big deal, but. And then you just slide down the rope, kind of like the bat pole, Batman does. And
Or
you got to be able,
pole.
or fireman pole. You got to slide down that thing in about 2 or 3 seconds. You can't be dilly-dallying with that thing because somebody's coming down right after you. So, but yeah, that was some good times there. I jumped out of an airplane probably about 33, 34 times. Did all kinds of rappelling and fast roping out of the Black Hawks and that sort of thing. So yeah, I recommend, though, that if anyone's going to go into the Army or Marines or something like that, go to airborne school. Go to scuba school if you can. Get all the schools that you can, because the more schools you do, the better it is for your promotion packet to get bumped up to E4, E5, E6. Go to all the schools you can, get all the knowledge you can, and then do your best to apply everything that you learn to your everyday scenarios. I mean, that's really no different than college and going to work. Get as much as you can out of it, and then apply it to your everyday and do your best you can. And they'll reward you, usually. So.
Have you applied some of the stuff that you learned in the Army to real life?
Oh yeah, every day. One of the phrases we had in the Army was "embrace the suck," and it's kind of vulgar. But the idea is that when things get horrible, when things get bad, that's not the time to focus in on yourself and say, oh, why is this happening to me? Why is this going on? In a battle, you don't have time for that. In a battle, what you got to do is you kind of got to accept it for what it is. Yeah, it's horrible. It is what it is, but you embrace it. You immediately have an opportunity then to figure out, okay, this is what I need to do to fix that, or this is what I need to do to get away from it, to get around it. Another phrase that we used to have, and they ingrained this from basic training on, was adapt and overcome. You need to be able to adapt and overcome different situations. You can't just sit back and hope something will work itself out. A lot of times things don't work out. Another thing I learned, and it's been reemphasized in different ways, is that your responses to various things really determine the outcome. And
E plus R equals O.
exactly, and that's what Urban Meyer made pretty big at Ohio State. Now, that didn't start with Urban Meyer. That started with a leadership author, and I'm trying to remember his name, and I can't remember his name. But now, we didn't have that equation, E plus R equals O, but we had the same concept. But E plus R equals O. Events plus response equals outcome. Your response to those events will determine your outcome in many ways. So, but yeah, there's principles like that we learned in the military that I've carried through to today, and I've told my kids those things too. Another acronym that I made up that hasn't, I mean, it makes sense, and it's not something I specifically learned directly in the military, but a lot of military experience kind of poured into this concept. But the acronym is PCT. You need to be proactive, conscientious, thorough, in order to be able to be fairly successful at life. Every now and then, sure enough, you need luck, but if you're proactive, conscientious, and thorough in what you're doing, the chances of you being successful are considerably greater than if you're not proactive, if you're not conscientious or thorough about what you're doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, I tell you what, I've really enjoyed doing this, and I thank you again for doing it, for
Well, I thank
agreeing.
you for, yeah, I thank you for inviting me, Luke. Thank you.
I would have done it with Dad, but then I'm like, yeah, I don't really get to talk to Uncle that much.
Well, I thought you were supposed to talk to him earlier today.
Thank you guys so much for listening, and I really enjoyed getting to talk to my uncle about his experience in the military. I know I said that earlier, but I really meant it, and thank you again so much for listening, and have a good day. Peace out.